All right. Hi, I'm Aidan McLeod. I'm a senior at Middleton High School. I work in stage crew and in the lighting department. And today I'm interviewing Zane Enloe. He's the PAC director at Middleton High School. And we're going to talk about his work in the industry. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us just a brief bit about what you do and who you are.
All right. So I'm Zane Enloe. I am currently the director of the Middleton Performing Arts Center. It's a 899 seat venue attached to the Middleton High School. It's a really great facility. We've got a 50 by 30 stage with a 20 by 50 foot proscenium and a full fly house and a modular house that can seat either 899 or about 650. So it's a pretty incredible space that we get to use right now.
Yeah. So now you're working as the director of the Performing Arts Center at Middleton High School. Tell us where you started exactly. What was the root of everything that you're working on?
All right. So I grew up in Southwest Wisconsin in a very small town, actually out in the country, outside of like Livingston and Rui. And I got into theater in middle school, really. Definitely did some plays as soon as they came up. But in the summers after like 7th grade, one of my middle school English teachers did a summer theater camp in Belmont, Wisconsin. And so there were a handful of us from like the Iowa Grant area, the Belmont area, and the Platteville school districts that did these shows in the summer. And they were very, very DIY. Like we like did them on hay wagons a couple times and like outside or like in somebody's parents' restaurant, like dinner theater type thing. But it was always a fun thing, and I always enjoyed the community aspect of it and just like the freedom to do something a little different.
Yeah. And from there, you've gone on to quite big things within the industry. So your career path, you want to give a brief, timeline or summary of how you moved into the career?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to school at UW-Madison, and there I took a lot of theater classes and had sort of thought of it more as a hobby and had thought about going into more like communications or TV for a long time. But in my junior year, I got to know a couple of the grad students pretty well. And these were all people that had gone off and worked in the industry and come back to school, specifically on a like technical direction sort of career path.
Mm-hmm.
And through talking to them, it became apparent that you could definitely make more of a career out of this than a hobby, as it was kind of sold to me in my youth coming from a very
Yeah.
small town. So after college, I applied to an internship at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art and ended up working in their theatrical production. They had 2 theaters out there. So right after I graduated in December, so I moved out there in early January and worked out there for 6 months. Then I came back to Madison and actually did a summer stint at the Middleton Performing Arts Center working with their youth program.
Mm-hmm.
And through that job, I got lined up with a former Middleton alumni who was working on touring shows for network productions as an electrician. And
Really?
yeah, Alan Schuster. So he hooked me up with the folks at Networks Presentations, and 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Florida to be the deck carpenter on The Wedding Singer, the musical.
Oh, really?
for
Just like
9
that.
months. Yeah, just like that, out of the blue. When opportunity arises, you just got to kind of hop on it. So
Hmm.
that started my 9 months on the road with the wedding singer. And after that, I moved out to New York and did a little work at the Public Theater through some people I knew from college, and then started work at New World Stages and did some like New York Fringe stuff and some freelance design and whatnot. But my main gig out there was working at New World Stages, which is a 5-theater off-Broadway venue. So I worked for the theater for 7 years there and had just about every job under the sun there.
Hmm.
Got to work on a lot of interesting productions there. We had a lot of kind of pre and post Broadway shows that came in. And with 5 theaters, you got to meet a lot of people and see a lot of shows come in and out. Then after that, I moved to Chicago and worked mainly at a scene shop called Means of Production. So we built scenery for a lot of kind of small to medium-sized storefront theaters all across Chicago. We did the window displays for the Ralph Lauren store downtown. We did a lot of work for Writers Theater up in Glencoe, and we did a few of the smaller shows for Steppenwolf. And I did a couple of calls with Steppenwolf as well, but Means of Productions was definitely my main gig in Chicago. And then I heard about this job up at the Middleton Performing Arts Center, and my wife and I had been looking at getting back into the Madison area if possible. So once again, when the opportunity arose, I took full advantage and at Middleton for just over 2 years now.
Great. And just after Wedding Singer, you jumped into New York, and that's where you started. And at some point in New York, you decided to move to Chicago. So I'm just curious, what was it that helped you make that decision, when it was time to move and where it was time to move to, or where it was the best place to move to?
Yeah, New York was always one of those places that I definitely wanted to check out for a while. And I loved it there.
Yeah.
It is a city like no other. The confines of the water really give it this close feeling
Yeah.
that you don't get in a lot of other cities. But we spent 7 years out there, and my wife was touring a lot, and so she was out of town quite a bit. And then I was ready to make a career change as well.
Yeah. After Wedding Singer, you were pretty much sold that that's what you wanted to do, like that out. So that's okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of a clear transition for me. New York was where I wanted to be, so headed out there. And when we left New York, it was really kind of a toss-up between Minneapolis and Chicago, just being kind of these like bigger Midwestern cities that still had a pretty big art scene. My wife and I are both from Southwest Wisconsin originally, so like being, within driving distance to our families was definitely kind of an important step to kind of be back in the area after being, out of state for close to 10 years. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Advice for people who are looking to follow in your footsteps. So you kind of talked about how you got on to jobs and picking up jobs, but just what advice would you give? What's your advice?
I think the main thing is you've really just got to you've got to do the work. You've got to be willing and you've got to be available. There were definitely some times early in my career, especially in college, if I look back, where there were some opportunities that I didn't fully take advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
just because I was, um, I chose to use my time differently, you know. But theater is always going to be slightly understaffed. There's always going to be a lot of work to do, and your friends that are doing it as well are always going to need help. And
Mm-hmm.
getting your hands-on experience, spending that time in the theater, whether it's building shows or hanging lights or helping somebody with focus, like that is all experience that pays off. So if this is something you want to do, you really have to just do it. There's not going to be a lot of barrier to entry. Like if you're willing to help, there are people that are going to be willing to let you help them, you know, like making that step from volunteering to getting paid, like definitely um, takes a little bit of work, but like if you're there, if you're helping, if you know what you're doing, and you keep your ears open and you volunteer, there's a pretty quick path from passion to profession, I would say. So yeah, just get out there and do it, and keep at it.
Sure. And as far as looking forward and right now, this could be, anything from scenic to production or on like a small regional scale to like a national scale. Where do you think the industry is going in your part? How is it changing in
Mhm.
the future? And
Yeah, so the thing that always drew me to theater was like the live aspect of it, the like large community aspect of it. Um, but I think there's no denying that newer technology is playing a greater role in the theater, and that's both good and bad at times.
yeah,
There's so much more that we're going to be able to do scenically with projections, with automation, as that technology becomes more readily available and cheaper you know, for groups with a smaller budget. And as it becomes safer, there's things that we're able to do in a high school setting that I would have never imagined being able to do um, 15 years ago, just because of either price or safety concerns. So that's really cool. But I would hope that we don't lose um, some of the history that comes along with the theater as we move forward. So
yeah,
um, personally, I like to keep things kind of simple and that kind of that theater magic, if you were,
mm,
with some elements, and kind of trust the theatrical audience to suspend their disbelief um, at moments, but then try to use technology to enhance um, those moments as much as possible. So um, I think we're going to see a lot more projection, a lot more automation, a lot more kind of mixed media um, as that comes with like both film and video and some of the lighting technology that changes. But I really think there's something to be said for the live nature and the one-on-one interaction between
yeah,
the performer and the audience. Just like live music, you're never seeing the exact same show. Like
mm,
you're seeing something similar, but that one-off nature of it, I think, is what keeps people coming back and keeps people engaged.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing your story and how you got there and where you think everything's going. So,
All right. Well, thanks so much, Aidan. Good talking with you.
yeah, you too. Thank you.